Joining us now, a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Mika. Great to be on again.
Good to have you on. What happened in that meeting, and are you hopeful that something positive could develop out of it?
Well, Mika, my New Year's resolution is to be hopeful. So to be positive.
Help me.
I think there are millions of Americans who voted for President Trump thinking that they were getting a businessman who knew how to bring people together, to cut big deals, and to sort of get through some of the divisions of Washington. That's not the president we've seen last year. But for a variety of reasons, he's realized that that's the president he needs to be in order to be successful as president and in order for the Republican Party to survive the 2018 elections. So what I thought we saw yesterday in that meeting, both in the visuals and in the conversation, was a president really trying to be and sound reasonable on a compromise around the Dreamers, on DACA. But we're coming up against a very difficult deadline that I'll remind you he created. And we've got nearly 800,000 young Americans who are really at risk of losing their place in our society. And there is a big gap between the right in the Republican Party and the majority of the country on immigration. We passed a broad, bipartisan, comprehensive immigration bill in the last Congress and the Senate by an overwhelming bipartisan vote. Never got taken up in the House. The politics of immigration are very hard. But if the president chooses to make this not just one-day photo op, but to show real leadership here, he actually could move us forward by getting a resolution to the status of Dreamers and new investment in border security.
Joe.
So Senator Joe Scarborough here, you're saying that if the president works with the Senate and then works in a bipartisan way in the House and doesn't allow himself to be led around politically by the nose by House Republicans, that you actually could have a sweeping immigration reform bill that could bring permanent relief to Dreamers, pass an immigration reform bill that may lead to perhaps legalized status, and also Donald Trump could get part of his wall and toughened border security. I mean, is that a possibility?
Well, I think it is a possibility. If you think about it, it was Nixon, the hardline anti-communist, who opened to China. To have someone who ran on a hardline anti-immigrant campaign platform be willing to genuinely embrace a bipartisan solution could finally get us over this hurdle. But President Obama, President Bush, congressional leaders of both parties over many Congresses have tried very hard. The politics in the Republican Party of allowing a pathway to citizenship for folks who came here, even through no fault of their own as children, is very difficult. But this is the president. President Trump is the president who could get that done. And I'll remind you that comprehensive immigration reform bill that was taken up and passed by the Senate scored as adding hundreds of billions of dollars to our GDP. It would help deal with some of the deficit problems that the tax bill he just signed into law may well create. It really could be a win for every sector of our society and economy.
Senator Sam Stein here. DACA obviously has this March 5th deadline that requires some sort of resolution, or at least compels some sort of resolution. But with respect to what comes after that, you're talking about the possibility of a comprehensive immigration reform bill. It's ambitious. And I want you to be candid about this, because it's not just Republicans who could be an impediment to this. Be candid. There is a toxicity to Trump that compels Democrats to not want to give him a victory. And that's also true about 2018 midterms, where your own base would find it fundamentally problematic if you are seen as working with this president. To what degree does that influence or impact the possibility of that ambitious legislative project?
Well, Sam, there's certainly partisan politics in both parties and for every electoral cycle. The challenge of those of us who've been sent here by our states to do what our system requires is that we find ways to compromise. I'm willing to work with our president if that would move forward a resolution to the legal status of the 800,000 young people currently in limbo. I'm willing to work with our president if that'll get a real infrastructure bill done in a constructive way. I'm not willing to work with our president where he violates fundamental values or puts at risk the rule of law. I'm working diligently hard on the Judiciary Committee to protect Robert Mueller and to make sure that he's able to advance his investigation. But I also extend an open hand to work with the administration on advancing manufacturing. I was just with the SBA administrator from the Trump administration in Delaware, welcoming her to tour a great small business in Delaware. It's one of the committees I serve on. I have no problem working with the Trump administration where they're doing good things that will help create jobs or make our country safer or more just. But I do think, to your point, Sam, that the Trump administration, that President Trump has done things and continues to do things that requires Democrats to stand up.
Senator, it's Jonathan Lemire. The president has at times flirted with bipartisanship, and whether because of congressional Republicans or kowtowing to his own base, has pulled back. So 2 questions for you. First is, do you think this one is going to be any different? We already saw him last night tweet his insistence that he would require a wall as part of, as part of any deal, and of course that's inflammatory for a lot of Democrats. And then secondly, there's been a lot of discussion about that this meeting happened at all as a way for the president to push back against criticism that he may not be up to the job. I wanted to get your sense of that from what you saw yesterday.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see in a matter of days whether what happened yesterday was simply a publicity stunt that allowed the president to once again change the narrative so that today everything we're talking about on television this morning is about this promising start to bipartisan conversation around DACA and immigration reform rather than the president's fitness for office. Is he just trying to change the conversation for a day, or is he trying to demonstrate real leadership? It would require real political sacrifice for him to sign into law something that overcame the opposition of a hardcore group of House Republicans to any pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. That sort of leadership could produce real bipartisan progress, and I have to remain hopeful that that's possible, or it's just not worth getting on the train every morning from Wilmington, Delaware, to get down here to Washington to do this job. This system doesn't work without compromise. And I was struck that the president just threw out casually into the mix yesterday that he thinks we should bring back earmarks, that Congress should have some role in directing appropriations. That's one of many ways in which our budget, our appropriations process is broken. We don't have an opportunity to identify specific projects in our home states that get vetted, that benefit a public purpose. And that is one of the reasons that we haven't had a full and productive appropriations process in the 7 years that I've been here. But that was a stunning change in position from many in his party and many in his base. Will he follow through on that and continue to support the idea of some sort of new but transparent earmark? Will he follow through on yesterday's meeting and take substantive actions that might inflame his base? We'll see. That's the challenge of leadership.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you very much.